Hi, thanks for joining me on HR Chalk Talk. I'm Brent Houchin, founder of Houchin Consulting and co-founder of Tech People Resources, also known as TPR. The HR Chalk Talk podcast is here to provide information to those in HR, those in leadership positions, and those who simply want to know more about HR best practices. Today's subject is a little bit different. Today, we're interviewing a team member of a local company here in Denver. We're going to be discussing her thoughts and opinions as a team member and what she looks for and needs from an employer and leader that she works with and for. Today, we're meeting with Melissa Stowe. She works as a project analyst, assisting to one of the largest Catholic healthcare systems, and her type of company that she works for is healthcare IT. When we started HR Chalk Talk, we wanted to touch on many different subjects, all within the HR realm of work. With that in mind, getting leadership perspective was very important, but equally as important is receiving a team member's insights as well. So let's jump on in. I've been in HR leadership for about 25 years myself. I've learned and have grown in both directions, both based on those that I've worked with and for. I've learned some great stuff and I learned some really bad things. As long as we learn, as far as I'm concerned, that's what's important. It's not so great as if we don't learn. So let's jump into talking to Melissa. Melissa, tell me about the best person you have worked with and for, and why they stick out in your mind as the best.
Sure. So recently I had a boss who retired from the company where I work now, and he was actually my favorite boss that I've had at any company. I would say that he's my favorite because he was very hands-on when I needed him to be hands-on, but he also was very good at giving us space. He had a lot of trust in us, so he would give us that space to do our work and know that we could come to him when we needed him. He also, and he had listed this specifically on his LinkedIn profile, but he enjoyed being a mentor. And so one of his favorite aspects of his job was mentoring those that work with him or for him. And so I learned a lot from him. I had a boss who I felt was very invested in my success as well as his success and our company's success.
Wow, that's great. So what I'm hearing is trust was a big deal to you and something that you appreciated, and also that he spent time in mentoring and really uplifting you as an employee to learn more and be better.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Tell me about the worst person you've ever worked with and for, and why they stick out in your mind as the worst. And by the way, I understand that half the time thinking of the worst is way easier than thinking of the best.
You know, and actually most of my roles I've had a boss that I've really enjoyed, but there was one place where I believe that it will not be the norm, but I will mention anyway, and that is because it was such a small office. It was just her and myself, and it was too much personal discussions, too much, not enough of a boss and worker relationship. And so I felt that I was being leaned on to listen to personal issues rather than work on that great, boss and worker relationship.
That does not sound like fun at all. I know I've had a few leaders in my past, or being that they weren't my favorite, I'll call them a boss rather than a leader. And in that they really do sometimes make it a little too personal, and which kind of blurs some of the direction in who is what in what position, and it can make it a little bit tough.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate that. What does team mean to you? What is your definition?
So if I had to think of a definition of team, I would say where everyone has their role to play. It doesn't necessarily have to be equal or the same, but it can be to really leaning on each other and allowing people to work on what they are best at, as long as everyone is still doing their best. So I don't know if that makes sense, but basically working together, allowing people to showcase their strengths, and knowing that you can come to each other when you need help.
Wow, I like that, and I like the coming to each other when you need help. You know, I've been in HR for quite a while, and one of the things that I see often are teams who truly never embody the word team, right? I mean, even if you think about team in sports, it really takes the whole team to win. I mean, sure, you have your key players and different people there, but it takes the whole team to win. It's no different in work, and that you have to be able to rely on each other and be able to ask one another for help.
Yes, exactly.
On the subject of learning, what lesson have you learned that you will always remember? What is something that, and it could be ooh, that was a bad lesson. You know, it was a thing that I had to learn because I did it wrong, or it's something I did so right that I have to remember to do it that way always going forward.
Okay. So one thing that I talk about when they ask, what mistake did you make? You know, when you're in an interview and the interviewer asks you, what mistake did you make and how did you handle it? So when I worked at a financial firm, I was actually in human resources myself, and I would run background checks on our financial candidates. And we did not have a definite or black and white system where someone would just pass or fail. It had to go through different reviewers. And so there was one candidate in particular who had multiple DUIs on their record. And I thought, okay, this is probably not going to be a good look for our company. But, you know, I brought it to the manager, let them make their decision. The manager decided to bring them through because we needed to hit our numbers. And I said, okay, you know, I assumed that it's the manager's job to make that decision and there's nothing more I could do. Well, fast forward a few months, they were not able to get fully licensed in all 50 states because of those DUIs on their background. And we, as a talent acquisition department, did not look very good for that reason, where we knowingly hired someone with those items on their record. And so I had a director that came to me personally and said, you know, I understand that you felt you were doing your job, but it's okay to speak up when you need to. And I hope that in the future, you will be able to, you know, if the manager above you is making a decision and you still feel that something is off, don't stop there. Keep going if you really feel like something's wrong, and I will support you. And so I know there are situations where people may not feel like they will be supported, but ultimately you should go with your gut. If something doesn't feel right, then keep saying something until the right person listens.
So reporting it up to where it needs to be, especially listening to your gut. I think that's, you know, it's such a non-HR term. You know, we're never supposed to say go with your gut, because in HR it's supposed to be black and white and it's supposed to be all about the rules. But really, there is an inner voice, I think, inside all of us that says what's right and wrong. And that at times we do need to kind of step up and speak up, you know, to do the right thing. And in this case, you all hired someone, spent the time hiring them, spent the time getting them in. They couldn't be licensed, and it cost you and, well, not you, but the company money, but your time.
Yes. Our time, our money, like you said, a whole month of them being in training.
Oh gosh, a whole month. I didn't realize it's that long.
And then all the time and money that it takes to attempt to get licensed in all 50 states, because our company sponsored and paid for that.
Wow. Okay. Well, good lesson to learn for sure. What is something you wish companies would do more of for their team members? In other words, what's something you wish that, whether it be a benefit, whether it be something that's just for the team or the group, what's something that you wish all companies would do more of?
So I work on a team that is very remote, and I have heard of teams in the past doing a little bit more team building activities, investing a little bit more money in these team building activities, such as having off-site visits or off-site activities. The company where I am now, though I love it, we don't invest that money to get to know each other better as team members. And that is something, especially as more and more companies are going remote, that I think would be extremely valuable. And I myself, if I travel on my own and I notice that there's a coworker who happens to be in that state, I will reach out and actually go meet them myself.
Oh, wow.
Because that's how valuable I think it is. And I truly wish that my company would organize something, even if it was just once a year, once every other year. Just something, because like I said, I think it's extremely valuable, helps us to truly work as a team and be able to ask other people for help when you're more comfortable with them.
I think inherently, people are people. People want, we're pack animals in a way as well. And not that I am trying to refer to all of us as pack animals, but I mean, generally people, even quiet and private people, like to know who their coworkers are to a degree, to some sort of a degree. Some people more, some people less, but that you actually put the face with the name. And even though we have Zoom and we have Skype and we have all these other systems that we can use, it doesn't hold the same value as actually being interact with someone periodically from time to time.
Yes, exactly.
If you could create a specialized learning and development program for leadership, what do you feel leadership needs to know a lot more of? Like, what's one subject that leadership around the world needs to hear?
Okay. So I think people in leadership may need to have a little bit more, I guess, openness to hearing from people at all levels. So people may assume that people at their level have a certain degree of experience and job knowledge, which is true, absolutely. But people at all levels have something to offer, and that includes to leadership themselves. So even though almost every boss that I've worked for, or people in leadership that I've worked for, I think have been great bosses, great leaders, I do feel like they could listen to people at all levels, not necessarily to distract them from making a decision or have it take longer to make a decision, but just to factor in all the aspects of that decision.
Nice. I recently was talking to a leader in a company, and they were just asking, what is something that I can do to change? And this is based on what they told me about them as leaders. And I said, it sounds like you don't listen a whole lot to your teams, but that you impart your knowledge to them, which is great, but that you're not learning anything from them. And they kind of sat back and looked at me and thought, you're right, I don't. And so it was a cool learning experience and moment with them.
Yes, and I was going to say that's actually one of the other things I liked about my favorite boss, is that even though he was a great mentor, he never hesitated to say, if I figured out how to do something on my end and showed him, he would say, wow, I learned something new and I never knew this before. And so you could tell he was open to receiving the knowledge as well as giving.
I always say I have something more to learn every single day. And if I actually end a day with feeling like I didn't learn anything, then I wasn't paying any attention. Yep. And I put that on me.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you, Melissa, for joining us today. We only have 15 minutes for these podcasts, and we're going to end right about there. This has been so helpful and insightful, and I think that a lot of people can learn and hear what you had to say today as a thinking point for themselves as well. As we close, I want to remind everyone that you can always contact us at Tech People Resources for learning and development opportunities on any HR-related subject, or you can always reach out to me at Houchin Consulting for HR assistance of any kind. We're here to help. Tune in next time to HR Chalk Talk as I interview an individual in a leadership role. This interview will hit on some of the points that are important to leaders when it comes to their teams. And remember, it's about respect. Your employees will thank you. Respect is an absolute must when leading others. The more you know, the more you will succeed. Thanks for joining me today, and have a great week.